I have a huge news video for you today because I'm going to be covering a lot of stuff. A lot of it, either I haven't covered in a long time, that's finally coming, and so I want you to know about it. There's a whole lot of just stuff I'm excited about that I've been leading up to. There's some talking points. There's a little bit of kind of drama, negative stuff in there. There's some positive stuff in there. There's some huge insight that we've rarely ever seen from a creator from a behind the scenes point when it comes to funding and what's needed to fund and what their actual metrics look like on the back end of these systems. There's a whole host of things. So I hope you're ready for kind of a big update here because it's going to be a good one. All right, now we do have a lot to cover, so I want to get this out of the way beforehand so that then we can just go in and get all that information. And there's some crazy stuff, like SFG's buying a whole bunch of stuff. Like, there's stuff I wasn't even anticipating, so I'm really pumped to talk about this for you guys. But I'm also pumped to thank my sponsor, Into the AM. This is actually one of their shirts right here, one of their new shirts. They have these lovely button-up shirts that fit really nice. This is a great one. Probably my most comfortable shirt I own. And that's including like even just like normal shirts. Like this, it feels so good. If you want it tight, if you like that, it can do that. But I just keep it open. Honestly, it's fantastic. It goes great with their everyday pants. I'll show those off next time I wear those. Right now I'm wearing some khakis. But really good. And they have a huge 40% off best sellers. This is great for Father's Day. That's coming up soon. And you can save an additional 10% on top of any sales they have. So whatever it is, your price, 10% less using my code down in the description below. Please go ahead and check them out. Go ahead and use that code. Save yourself some money. Get your dad something nice. Get yourself something nice, or a buddy of yours, or whoever you're shopping for. They will love it, I promise. If you look at their site real quick, as you can see, they're definitely advertising, hey, this is our best stuff, what people love. 40% off. That's awesome. So for you, with that my code, 50% off, which is really, really good. And they have some newer stuff too, right? There's actually the shirt I'm wearing right now. These shorts, for instance, they're on sale. Really, really comfy shorts too. Like you forget you're wearing them, and kind of in a good way. In a good way. They have a ton of great stuff. They're always coming out with new stuff every single week. It's fantastic. Highly recommend all of this. Into the AM, again, fantastic quality stuff. And now half off thanks to that 10% cut. So feel free to use that. Guys, thank you so much for listening to that. A little bit of a ramble, as I thank Into the AM for being such a huge sponsor of the channel throughout the years. They have been really good to this channel, so I hope you're really good to them. All right, with that out of the way, let's dive in. This is going to be good. It's going to be good. I'm excited. Okay, starting things out, return to the 7th Citadel, explore, build, you are the hero. This is definitely the sandbox survival adventure game that it's always been. Now with a little bit more, and really like just a little bit. It's mostly just a reprint, right? Which is totally fine. It's well regarded. It's already made over $500,000. It still has 2 weeks to go and almost 5,000 backers. That's pretty darn impressive. That's really good. Serious Pulp has a banger that has some long life to it, which is really good and shows the quality of the game. Anytime you can see that people are buying more of a game over time, you know there's something going on there, right? It may not be for you, but at least you know it's not some like terrible crap game that's just garbage, because obviously people are enjoying it. Maybe you don't, but they do. And so I think it's great. It also means it's not so much a one and done with the company, which we get. I look at my games over here, a big wall of them, and so many of those games that came out and then you never even hear about them again. The company doesn't do anything with them, so I do love that. So they have the Season 1 content and Season 2 new content. The new content, as you can see, is stuff like this, right, where you get about 126 cards. Like, it's not small per se, right, but it's a whole new region that you get to explore called the Collapsing Lands. And then they even have a few things like, you know, obviously some fancy stuff here, but like the reversal's kind of cool. It changes the starting, so it really spices up your playthrough right from the get-go, which is a nice idea to do. And then, you know, just a whole bunch of other stuff. So you can definitely go pretty heavy in here. But if you're looking for stuff to get, now's the time to do it. They do have daily stretch goal unlocks as well. So yeah, very cool to see this here again. I wasn't aware that it was coming back, but here it is. So that's awesome. I feel like I've covered this game about 3-4 times, just not this specific campaign. Speaking of which, Agemonia reprint plus new heroes is also here. Agemonia was probably one of my highlights when it comes to early play, just because of how different it was from everything else. The game was just a lot of fun, and it just felt really different. The world, the theme, the style, but even like the gameplay, it felt like a really cool adventure. And I don't feel like I get that very often. It's a huge box. If you see it at like any of the conventions, that purple box is massive, and it's purple, right? It stands out. It looks really cool. I dig that. Component quality, from what I hear on the final product, was kind of hit or miss. Just kind of depends. It's definitely an indie thing when it comes to that, but definitely super cool. I'm glad that they're here again. You can see there's 2 new heroes, so you get. Just if you like the game, there's more here. If you haven't gotten into it, this is obviously a great version to get. Price did increase a little bit, but honestly, it's not too terrible. If you just want the new stuff, it's about $40, right? And as you can see, there's more than just the heroes, right? But then if you come down here, the core game is about $120. That's still in line with like now. In fact, that's like cheap even now, considering how high prices have gone normally. And the all-in is $250, which again, I don't think is actually that big of a deal, but it is bigger than or higher than it originally cost way back when. As with all games, they cost more than they did way back when. That's cool. I dig it. I like it. I think this is a recommended one for me just because of how different it is. I'm always looking for those differentiators, always looking for something that stands out. Agemonia definitely stands out, I feel. All right, next up we have Mythic Battles Isfet. I have an unboxing of this. You can see that on my channel. I'll go on and try and link down in the description below. Pass that into the AM link. There's going to be a whole bunch of links to everything I cover, but including my unboxing here for that. It's really, really nice. It's a nice a prototype. It looks good. Monolith never fails when it comes to that. And they seem to still be doing good. This is like the fourth or fifth campaign for Mythic Battles. I know Pantheon had at least 2. So like it's been here for what seems like forever. Years and years and years. Tons of campaign, tons of content. Some people have had their fill, which makes total sense. I know it fills many Calyx shelves on my as well. That being said, still 2,000 backers. This is recorded, I think, the actual day they went live. 15 days still to go. 412,000 raised, so definitely doing well there. And what I appreciate, 217,000 was the goal. I appreciate an honest goal there, where it's like, hey, if it's less than this, at the size that Monolith is as a company, which is fairly lean, a lot leaner than it used to be, but it's also not some just like there's people working full time at it, right, too, and making their living making these games for us. So, as much as I would love companies to be able to do like really short prints, and I think for indie it makes a lot of sense, once you start really getting some full-time employees and doing all that sort of stuff, it really gets to the point where it's not sustainable to run a business on like really low funding stuff. But I do think you can make games for really low funding stuff. It's been done before. They're doing stretch goals. They have a hippo warrior. God, a hippo. Come on. A hippo. I love it. Yes, please. I want to play as a hippo. That's freaking awesome. So they have quite a bit here. 120 euro for the base pledge. And then, which is converted, what is it right now? Right now, that's about 131. Again, still a lot lower than a lot of these other ones I see. A little bit higher than that Agemonia at 120. But, this is a big box. It was a big prototype even. That wasn't even everything. Not even close. And then if you get the Norse God Pledge, because they're doing the Ragnarok, you can get some of that as well. If you get the Egyptian All-In, it is $282 at the time of recording anyway. So sub 300 for the All-In. I do appreciate that they didn't do any of these as big as they did Pantheon. That being said, there's new Pantheon stuff as well. So if you get the Norse All-In, it's actually $326. And then if you get the new content All-In, it is $354 because they have new stuff for more than just the Egyptian, which is, I think, pretty cool. I like seeing all the new stuff, right? So here's, reprint stuff. And then here's some new stuff. They have the Kraken expansion. They have the Keeper of the Souls. They have the Chthonian Wrath. Then they have a dice tray and then more stat clips to kind of accommodate that. So real quick, just to show you what the new stuff is. Again, I show most of this, at least that, in the unboxing. So they also have this Duat. Again, I'm probably saying these words wrong. My apologies. Expansion, where you get 2 new gods, 3 new heroes, including a scorpion guy, 3 new monsters, and then 2 new unit troops that you can go on 2 different game boards that are double-sided each, I believe. I think that's what that is. Yes. Yeah, 1 double-sided board. So you get 2, 1 on both sides. And then they have the Eternal Cycle. This is just like these giant titans that you get, right? So these are big, bad mamma jammas here that you get to use. And then, of course, dice trays and stuff like that, art books, whatever. For Ragnarok, here's the Kraken expansion. This is new for Ragnarok. So if you're into the Norse stuff, this is all Norse stuff here. So again, 4 new heroes, 1 new god, 1 new titan, 2 new monsters, and then 2 more troops. And then another game board, which is always awesome. Then the reprint. And then if we go to the Pantheon, we have the Keeper of the Souls, which has 1 new monster, 2 new gods, and then some more stuff there. There's also the Chthonian Wrath, where you get 1 god and 1 monster. So a few smaller things there. There's a lot. It's just I like seeing the continued support for this. I know they asked last time, hey, what do you guys want? And a lot of people said Egypt, so that's what we're getting. I don't know if they're going to do another one. And if they do, what it'll be. If you think they still should do one, what do you think they should pursue? Like, what mythology should they go for? I think it's key to have it be some kind of non-practiced modern one, right? Because you do step on some toes if you do anything too modern. But it just depends, right? I mean, it depends on both Monolith's semblance on that and just really how you handle the thing. But, it's not like they're going to have, Jesus versus Buddha. This is not that kind of game, right? And so, you do kind of want to avoid that a little bit. At least I think they probably do. But there's still, I think, a whole lot of other ones that they could pursue. So I'd love to hear what you think. What would be cool? What would be the coolest minis, huh? Next up, Degenesis Clan Wars. This is wrapping up at the time of recording. It's about 2.5 days left. 242,921 backers. Less than 1,000 backers for a CMON Game Found campaign. I'm going to talk more about CMON recently in a separate video probably. I'm not going to put it all in this video, but suffice it to say they've been doing a lot of campaigns very quickly here. It very much feels that they're kind of shotgunned, and in this case I think it kind of is. Now, CMON didn't actually even make this. This is totally, when it comes to the design and all that, it's separate from them. They're just kind of publishing it and doing the campaign for it. But I think a lot of it's just the game itself, right? It's a 1 versus many, which I love 1 versus minis, but a lot of people don't. It has both abstract and the miniatures, right? So it's got the miniatures in, it's got the abstract, little blips and stuff like that. So there's a little bit of that. The gameplay isn't something that is getting a lot of people into it. It doesn't differentiate itself from hate visually too much. So because it's CMON and because people know hate, especially on this channel, I know a lot of people see this and think, oh, this is another hate, and it's not. And so there's some expectation changes there. There's probably a whole host of things that we could talk about here. A lot of it is very bare bones here when it comes to the art style of it, which some people will like, some people won't. Just kind of depends. Honestly, it's a lot. I didn't back it either, and I was really pumped about this for a long time. Again, when it comes to differentiating, when it comes to doing something different, you really got to stand out, and I'm not sure this does it beyond artistically. Or at least it doesn't enough to get backers, obviously, right? And justify its price and do all that kind of stuff. So some of it might be campaign. I know I like 1 versus many, but a lot of people don't, which is why they often have an AI running that nowadays, or they don't do it at all. And there's now solo as well. So it's just, and then it's sci-fi, and then there's a mature theme. So you get more and more niche as it goes on. And surely CMON knew this going into it. Surely they were yeah, this is obviously not something that's going to sell bananas and be our next Zombicide, right? So I don't know. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. Why do you think it didn't even reach 1,000 backers? And again, it still hasn't done the last 48-hour thing, right? So we're still waiting, but there's about 2 days left. It'll probably reach about 1,000. I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Next up, Cysmic. Cysmic still has 23 days left. A huge long campaign. 134,000 raised, which is incredible. That being said, they need 160 to actually fund, and even then that's just barely. So that's 83% funded currently and 556 backers. So half of 1,000 are backing it, but they did jump above the 500 group there. And again, still a long time to go. It kind of reminds me of Shield a little bit. Shield barely funded it like at the very end, so in this case they're actually doing a lot better than Shield did, and that ended up delivering. So like, I know it's possible. I know you can do this. I've shown the gameplay off quite a bit on this, so I won't dive too much into that. You guys have seen this on my channel quite a bit. One of the interesting things is the guys running this are like really into transparency. And so like, you have this update here. This was update number 6, where they talk about hamburgers and economics and how they lose money in hamburgers at fast food, but they make money in fries and stuff. And I've often talked about how you can't price items individually. Like, people are like, well, how much were you quoted on this? But when you're offering a SKU of, range, it all needs to make sense as a whole, not necessarily individually, right? And that's kind of what he's saying here, that essentially it's like, hey, we might barely break even or even lose a little bit on the core box, but expansions often pay for things. Add-ons like dice, huge. Kamana has gone on record before, and a couple years ago, talking about how that was their most common add-on and also their most profitable, because it doesn't cost $1 per to make dice. And in fact, you can make dice in different colors and sell the different colors, and all this is changing the plastic in the same mold. It's so cheap to do, and people will spend tons of money on dice. I know, I get it. We're nerds and we love our dice, right? I'm guilty of it. My wife loves buying new dice and fancy dice and all that, but it makes them a lot of money. It's very high profit. It's kind of like the soda, right? Where it obviously doesn't cost them $3.50 for a soda, but they're going to charge you that anyway, and then put 10 cents worth of syrup in there, right? Like, it's what makes the money and helps pay for the hamburger. That's what he's saying there. But he goes on to address all sorts of stuff and breaks it all down, and it's really a cool read. It's not too bad. One of the things I highlighted here is I spent a couple of months reworking the game for basically 4% of the backers. What he's talking there is he made a cheap version for the game to barely, like, hey, here's like the standee version, right? Here's a version that's toned down as an entry level for those who want it. And the backers almost always, not always, for instance, Osworn is kind of an exception to this and is often pointed at. Very true. There's always exceptions. For the most part, that cheap version is it's not worth it. You're going to get a few backers there, and now you have a whole nother SKU to deal with, which just increases prices or costs across the board. 4% of people went for that. Most people still go all in, still go for the heavy or main amount. So that cheapo version that you think you're expanding is actually just costing you money. So he goes into more detail in the 7th one, where he breaks down exactly what he sees in the back end. And it's impressive. It's really cool. So feel free to read through that if you're curious about the inner workings of a campaign. It's kind of a neat thing to see. Next up, we have Blood by Ludus Mag Studio. This is one of the most common guesses for my number 1 game coming up, was actually Blood. You guys thought I would be all in on this. Maybe. So I have grown to start liking Ludus Mag Studio better. I had a play session with Requiem, and I actually quite enjoyed it. I actually had a really fun time playing Requiem, and like a little thing there. And obviously, the like old school German feel, like I loved it. Just the theme of it looked super cool, and I loved the little book and stuff like that. So there's a lot of little things I liked about it. When it comes to buying a physical board game, I just want it to be cool and pretty and neat, and it checked all those boxes, right? So I liked that. They seem to be more serious about their games and developing better games. They actually had a chat with me. Their like owner, CEO guy was talking to me about it, because he knew I was pretty critical of them early on, and he talked about how they've really tried to turn a new leaf there and make better games, and I appreciate that as well. So I think that's cool. Blood comes out in 20 days, so less than a month, and obviously the theme looks super cool. It's vampires. I'm less keen on vampires, but vampires are still pretty cool. So this looks really nice. I love the little box design, by the way. Like, it looks pretty, of course. I love it. I love the 3D terrain. I'm a sucker for it. I don't know if this is something that I would actually get gameplay-wise, though. It seems to me like it might struggle to stand out a little bit. Like, this looks like very similar AI that I've seen before. This looks like very similar boss mechanic kind of stuff that I've seen before. I like the story mode roguelike single battle. I love the fact that they're not even like ashamed to put roguelite and then put Darkest Dungeon vibes here, right? I mean, I know exactly what I'm looking at there, and so do they. Again, it looks very pretty, though it is, again, that minimalist design, but like this doesn't look like, and again, this is surface level. I haven't dug into it too much, but it doesn't strike me as, oh my gosh, this is a way different boss battler than my other boss battlers. So I don't know. I have quite a bit at this point. It's definitely a genre that's exploded a lot, and it's almost like this is coming in after the fad, if that makes sense. So I don't know. We'll see. I like the idea of it being options here, especially a roguelike boss battler. The only one I have there is like Townsfolk Tussle, and this is very different from that. So maybe, I don't know. I need to look into it more. It does look pretty, though. It does look pretty. But I got to get the gameplay, too, guys. Gosh, that box looks good. My goodness. Kemet, Rise of the Gods. That's coming out here soon as well. In fact, I believe they have the date here. July 2nd is when Kemet, Rise of the Gods comes in. It's a new expansion for it. As you can see, it'll show off some of the new stuff you can get, which is pretty cool, especially if you're into Kemet. This is definitely more. You got 6-player, new tiles, Gods mode, solo mode. The new modes, I think that's pretty cool. I really like breathing new life into a game system. This team mode apparently is like really easy to get into, so that's awesome, of course. The minis look pretty neat. You know, they're certainly not known for like fantastic minis or anything, but they look nice, so that's cool. So if you like Kemet, or if you've been interested in getting into it, this looks pretty neat. I don't know if they'll have the core game or not. I imagine it's not just the expansion, but we'll see. All right, next up we have Sirens of Deep Sea. This is really interesting. So I covered this way long ago. 20 days still to go. 9,000 people following. I don't know how many of those people even still crowdfund. Again, this has been a long time coming, but it is finally actually coming. And in fact, I think they offered me to a play session like 3 years ago, it feels like. And maybe it was about then. I don't know. See, so this is from Forgotten Tales. Forgotten Tales is actually the KOA Studios. They stole my name. No, it was a joke. But anyway, they did rename themselves, right? So they used to be this. They did the Aurora Hunters, and it didn't work out for them. So they rebranded it, put it in a page here. But then they're like, you know what? We're actually going to do Sirens first, and that is on GameFound. If you go to their website, they mention Aurora Hunters as well, going on GameFound soon. So while I'm going to send you a link to this, it'll be there. This isn't necessarily the one you want to follow. I think they're going to swap over. So hopefully that's sooner rather than later. So when we're, sending people, if they get coverage, you definitely want it to kind of, be able to send people somewhere. I don't know if they share the gameplay well, right? Like it's obviously very different from a lot of the other games, right? They even have a free mode, right? But then they have scenarios and stuff like that. And they talk about stuff here, but it's hard to really grasp what this is. Like mechanically, you can kind of understand, right? But then there's like dodge and critical damage and stuff. Like there's a lot here that's still question mark. It's cool that they have all these underwater minis, right? It's definitely a unique theme that I really appreciate. It looks really pretty, at least as a render. But gameplay-wise, I'm going to have to look into it more, and that's going to take some effort because it doesn't look like they do the best job of necessarily sharing what the game is about. So hopefully they can improve that. Steamforged Games, they just bought a whole lot of stuff. Warmachine, they now own the P3 paints. A whole lot more. Iron Kingdoms is big. In fact, they just bought all of this stuff. I don't even know what that leaves Privateer Press with. And I don't know what caused them to sell all of this to SFG. I do think SFG can really run with a lot of these. I feel like this is too big of a spread, and I hate to say it, but like maybe you shouldn't support all of these different things, especially all at once. They have a great miniature line that does very, very well, right? Their Epic series here. They now have a paint thing. They could do a GW thing, right, where they're making minis and selling paints alongside them. I would love to see that just because I want more P3 paints. It's always kind of hard for me to find them, which is probably why they sold it off. It's this they've really struggled to keep that in there. But I think they're nice paints. So it's interesting. Yeah, they got Riot Quest and all sorts of stuff. So Yeah, apparently they're moving orders over. It's going to be in their web store. They now own all of this. So if you are into any of this, that's now SFG now, including the P3 pin. It's literally named after a privateer press. But okay, anyway, that's that. Judgment Eternal Champions. This is kind of an update. It's actually a month-old update. Some of my patrons were talking about this, and so I looked into it, and sure enough, really no change since the last time I covered this. If you recall, the last time I covered this, it was pretty brutal on Creature Caster. They really kind of screwed the pooch. And their backers are really left hanging. That being said, they do seem to be trying to fund it and actually be able to deliver it, but it's just not looking good, guys. And that's pretty much what they're saying here is, hey, yeah, they haven't finished all their like resin all-ins, right? The PVC, there's still not really a way to do there. They're talking about funding it through other stuff here. This is exactly, by the way, what SFG is doing, in my opinion. They're just honest enough to actually tell you instead of SFG, or not SFG, Lazy Squire Games, LSG, I apologize, LSG is doing with Storm Sunder and all that. They're just not going to be upfront with you like these guys are. So at least Creature Cast is being upfront now that they've kind of been shouted out and stuff like that, where it's like, hey, we were running this side project where, we're doing this other thing, this Bloodthorn project, hoping that it'll bring funds into the company so we can then deliver this old campaign. Yes, they're doing the whole take money from here to fund this, because if there's no way to get money from this anymore, it has to come from somewhere. You can't just invent money, right? I get it's bad. It's not a good situation to be in, but we know, and that's why, like, if you can't buy any more Storm Thunder. It's not being delivered. Like, they have to get money some other place, right? Like, to deliver Storm Thunder, they need money from other projects. They're just not going to come out and say it like this, right? So at least they're saying this, but yeah, essentially none of their stuff's doing as well as they would hoped. They keep delivering stuff, these kind of new units, like kind of really pricey things, but again, that's not really bringing enough in to really, make a difference here. So yeah, right now they still can't deliver. So if you backed it in PVC, you're not going to get it. If you backed it all in, there was some PVC stuff there you're still waiting on. So yeah, it just sucks. It really sucks. But I do actually appreciate at least that they're honest about it. Because sometimes we don't even get that. It's just a sucky situation and dishonesty. All right. This is Backerkit. The only reason I'm showing this is because there was nothing here worth showing. When was the last time you backed something on Backerkit that was a board game? They seem to be kind of heavy in the RPG space right now. When it comes to, recently. But like, what was the last big campaign on Backerkit? I remember talking about this on GameFound, right? When GameFound was first starting out and they were struggling to kind of, not struggling, but slowly ramping people up. And there would be months where I wouldn't even link to GameFound because there was nothing really worthwhile to talk about when it comes to a large audience, right? And taking up your guys' time. I try to distill it into what looks good to me. And just stuff wasn't funding very high. It was this kind of small time stuff for, localized fan groups and whatnot, which is fine. But, and obviously GameFound got there. Do you think Backerkit's going to get there? I feel like this has been longer than GameFound went in that kind of weird limbo area. Then they still had these spikes where it would be really big. I know Backerkit still has that a little bit, but I don't know. What do you think? How do you think Backerkit's doing? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Guys, that's it. That's a lot. Again, a huge amount of links below, including the Into the AM stuff. Huge shout out to them, of course. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, if you want me to look into anything, if you think I need to know about something, if you have any feedback at all or just any comments, do let me know. Write those comments. I do read them. I often respond to them as much as I can, though it does take up a lot of time to do that. But I do appreciate it. I really do. Thank you guys for the support over the years, and it's been a lot of fun, and I can't wait to continue to do this. I got more unboxings. Dawn of Madness just came today, time of recording. Like, literally, like, I came home from work, and it's there. So I finally can take a look at Dawn of Madness for you. Again, I played the prototype way back when, so it'd be kind of cool to revisit a lot of that. So I'll let you guys know what I think on that as well, so stay tuned for that. And with that, I'll let you guys go. Take care. Bye, guys.